initially checked with one or two of you. I think that's the way one should start with. So can I ask those two who gave me their idea of what cases they are planning to write, where did the case lead come from?
Sir, in my case, this is Shirsha.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Yes, sir. In my case, when I was working, when I was trying to collect data, I was doing a pilot survey. At that point of time, I get in touch with this lady who is the founder of the NGO. So from her, I got the lead.
So that is part of your research, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So your research could actually lead you to writing a case because you feel that it's an interesting, it's an interesting kind of a situation that the organization is facing.
Sir, yes, sir. I identified the situation. I thought that, I find interest. So I thought that in this area, I can write a case.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think that's what I'm saying. So something has triggered you in terms of writing a case. So it could be research that you are pursuing, like what Professor Sirisha is talking. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right, sir.
I think the other one is by I forget the name. But who was mentioning about the other case on sports goods company? I mean, sportswear company. I think she's not there. Okay, so where do you get these ideas? One way of looking at it is student projects. I think I would say that most of the cases that I have written are on the basis of student projects, right? I think most of your programs, whether it is BBA, MBA, PhD, or even executive education, there are projects that are given for different contexts, right? So it's usually based on some organization or a company or a situation, right? Is it true that most of you, I mean, I think let me take an example of some one of the participants. Anybody? Would you want to share exactly what is your educational institute and what programs do you have and what are the kind of projects that you give? Any one of you want to share? Or somebody from St. Joseph itself?
Sir, so I'm an assistant professor in economics. I handle economic related subjects like financial economics, behavioral, micro, macro.
Okay. Yeah, you tell me how many students do you have and what kind of projects do they do? Like internship or summer project or capstone project or end of the course project, end of the end of the program, like BBA, the third year, final semester, completely about project like that. How is it that happens in your place?
Yeah, so they usually have research papers or assignments based on the subject that they are studying. So, like for example, if they are doing studying microeconomics, we usually ask them to pick a company and study its microeconomic environment, or like the macroeconomic environment, like related to the pandemic and how they are handling it.
Okay.
And all that.
Okay. Now, what
and
about
they have internships. Yes, and sir, I think Dr. Chavi has raised her hand. I think she has something to add to it.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Sir, we have a variety of courses at our university. We have BBA.
Which is the university you belong to?
Sir, I'm at IIS deemed to be University, Jaipur, Rajasthan.
Okay.
And right now we have BBA courses. We have BVOC Digital Marketing and MBA in different disciplines. And
So
we
total
have
number of students, any idea roughly?
in universities more than
No,
5,000.
no. Only in your business programs.
Somewhere around 700.
700. Okay.
And we have student projects, we have student internships, we have summer internships, and we also promote our students to go for industry, go to industry and take some projects over there.
Correct. So now, let's say, for example, if it is 700, I am taking it as a typical 3-year kind of this one. You have every year about 200 or so students doing different kinds of projects, right? Either in group or individually. And let's even consider that they are doing everything in groups. So 200 students in groups of 4 would mean there are about 50 projects, and let's say, for example, only 50 projects, the final project, let's take that. Now, if you take just only those 50 projects, my question is, can you not even take 10% of those 50 projects which have done, in which students have done extremely well? And then these are based on companies, actually some market research has been done, or some analysis has been, financial analysis has been done, or some operations management problem has been solved, and all of that. Can you not convert that into a case?
Sir, actually I tried once. One of my students took the case of Barbie dolls. EPRG orientation, we teach students polycentric orientation, where in different countries, Mattel Incorporation launches different looks and body structure dolls so that they are fitted into the country-wise consumers' needs are satisfied in that way. So I tried to write a course in a case on that matter, but the problem which I faced was that I was not able to get appropriate data from the company. I wanted to have the figures which were related to sales of only Barbie dolls.
No, Barbie dolls would mean this is a multinational company. If it's, I don't know whether it's listed or not. You have to go to their website.
I approached them too.
Okay, what did they say?
They said whatever data is available on the website, you can take that, but beyond that, we can't open up our figures. So that was a bit, I have to put my foot behind, because I stuck up to a point over there.
Yeah. So it's a good attempt, but at least you found that one of the projects is worthy of converting into a case, right? So my point is like this: if in each one of your institutions, you individually or as an institution as a whole, if you are able to evaluate at least 1% or 10%, depending upon your numbers of projects into cases, each one of your own institutions will have huge number of cases as a kind of repository on your own. So I'm saying wherever it is possible, this is the nearest and best resource that you can use in order to start off your job as case writers. I think somebody is wanting to ask questions. Dr. Swati. Dr. Swati, yes.
Dr. Swati, you've been given the option to unmute. You can ask your question now.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
it's
sir.
Not yet afternoon, I think. Okay, no. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Actually, it's a little early afternoon.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Actually, sir, as far as the situations where we can go ahead for writing a case, of course, student project is number one opportunity we can take up to write a case. There has been, different industries where I live in, which are a kind of, problematic kind of industry, which need, further attention.
Where are you from, Dr. Swati?
Sir, actually, I am, my maternal house is in Bikaner, Rajasthan. So there are a few industries industries there which need some kind of attention, maybe from a government point of view, to seek some help or otherwise. So we really wish to come up with the case for these industries some time back, but the situation was again, the lack of support from these people to get the kind of data we were looking forward for, what are the actual issues they are suffering from, certain figures and numbers that we were looking forward. So again, as somebody from other participant also said, because of that lack of support, she dropped out. We also have to drop out in the same context.
No, Dr. Swati, I think we try for one and we don't get it and we drop out. May not be the right strategy. So you try for 10 and there is a possibility that at least in one you get consent, data and everything perfectly as per your requirement. I think that's possible.
Like that attempt was one with the multiple sources we tried to contact them, sir, actually.
Yeah. No,
But they
I'm
were quite...
saying that out of the so many projects that you are guiding or your institution, several students are doing, if somebody really digs into and gets at some of the good projects and starts working on them towards converting into cases. I remember long back, that's what we did in our institute, the earlier institute I worked at, Manipal, and listed a lot of cases, and we in fact made it compulsory for students in the MBA second year to actually write cases and also write a teaching note along with it. This is long back. I'm talking of early 2000. So it is possible. I mean, my point is, if everybody is looking at developing a lot of cases and writing cases, it has to start somewhere which is an easy, fruit to pluck. Okay. And that is where I think student projects play an important role.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Okay. The second one is, I think all of us as faculty members who are into commerce, management, business, whatever is the area that we are teaching, we read newspapers and magazines related to business. And I think any new kind of or interesting kind of a headline that captures our attention is also something that can convert into a case. I was just telling you about, this local case that we wrote based on one news item on how somebody is selling fresh fish online, and how is that person managing the entire business. So it's possible that what we are talking of as case lead or seed material are actually triggers, which is on the basis of either a good student project, an interesting news or controversial news headline, or it could be your own experience in itself, right? This is something that I commonly share even in some of these executive education program for banks that I have. As a consumer, I invest in mutual funds, and I usually have a systematic investment plan, which means I link my bank account to this particular AMC's account, and therefore every month from my account, money goes to the specific funds in the AMC. This is what happens, and that's how a lot of people who invest in mutual funds do it. But then what happens is sometimes, and it happened in my case too, that the SIP is on, that means the systematic investment plan in terms of monthly investment in a fund is on, but the money from my bank account has not gone to the AMC's account. So initially some units are allotted to me, and then after that what has happened is it gets reversed because the money has not gotten from my account to the AMC. So the question is, I have gone in for a SIP, monthly SIP. It has been going on for the past 3-4 months, and suddenly, 1 or 2 months, money is not getting transferred to the AMC. And the worst part is I don't even know that money has not gone in, and later when I check after 1 or 2 months, I find that money is there, but it has not gone in for my SIP. So I start wondering what is the problem. Right, I try and understand what is it that happens in terms of this transfer. Is there an intermediary, right? So some of you who teach commerce or finance, can you explain what could be the problem? Any of you? Have you faced this situation, and what do you think is the issue? Yes, any of you who are able to hear me? And
yes, sir, we are able to hear you. I don't think there are any questions.
Yeah, I think somebody is.
Yeah, I think Dr. Cheryl has, and Dr. Swati
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. Dr. Cheryl, because he's a new person who's.
Yeah, Dr. Cheryl, you've been given the option to unmute.
You can unmute and speak, Dr. Cheryl. Hello.
What about Dr. Swati?
Yeah. I don't know what's happening. I think both of them have been given the option of speaking, right?
Yes, sir, they've been given.
Yeah, I see that. Maybe they have some glitch. Dr. Cheryl? Dr. Swati?
I think Dr. Carolina also has a question.
Please go ahead.
Maybe the standing instruction what you have given, sir?
Standing instruction?
To the bank?
Standing instruction is already there. What is the problem?
It is not given appropriately.
No, but the standing instruction is not something that is relevant here, because this is not a standing instruction. This is a regular transaction which has already been okay.
Faulty from banker's point of view.
Okay, in fact, since you said this, let me tell you the story. So what do I do when this happens? I go to the bank. The bank says it is not our problem. You check with the AMC. When I go to the AMC, they say it's a bank problem and we have no idea. Right, interesting, right? And you are an investor. Both the bank as well as the AMC are equally important for you. They both are service providers, and you are supposed to get some, useful reply from any or both of them. What do you think is the issue? Is there an intermediary in between the bank and the AMC when this kind of transaction actually happens? Yeah, any one of you? I think Dr. Cheryl or Dr. Swati are able to now speak.
I think they're facing some glitch, sir.
Yeah. Anybody?
Sir, can you share the question, because I didn't get that question exactly.
No. Do you invest in mutual funds?
Sir, yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Do you have a systematic investment plan?
Yes, sir.
So when you set up a systematic investment plan, what happens?
It's auto debit.
From your bank account to the AMC, whichever is the fund in which you have invested, right?
Correct. Yes.
Has it happened in any case that in between somewhere your money has not gone in from your bank account to the fund?
So far, no.
So you are lucky.
But still I can answer, sir.
Yeah. what is it that do you think happens when you have this auto debit facility for the SIP? Yeah, go ahead.
You mean to say the amount is not debited on the date that it should have been?
And it's not debited at all after that also.
Okay. No, maybe that's the issue with the bank, sir. Because
so what is the issue with the bank?
The issue has to do with the technology part of it. Maybe they have some.
So my question, Mr. Lewis, my question is, between the bank and the AMC, or the specific fund in which your amount has to go, is there an intermediary?
The intermediary, I don't see intermediary as an organization. It is more to do with the technology glitch that I can say, because AMC, once the amount is credited, they allot the units, as soon as possible.
No. How does the money go to the fund? Is it direct or is clearing happens? Does clearing happen for these?
No, there is no, for SIP, there is no clearing, sir. Directly the amount is credited because even from because usually I give a mandate to the AMC.
Okay.
And the AMC conveys it to my bank.
Correct.
So once the agreement is done, automatically there is a debit that happens. And AMC's rules are pretty simple. Once the amount is debited on that particular day, maybe 5th or 10th or 17th or 20th, whichever is the day, automatically the money is debited. Actually, now what I see is, though I've given 10th as the date, but then, the money transfer is not happening because 10th is a Sunday, for example.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. That is all fine. But I'm saying it's a working day. Yeah. It's supposed to go on that day, but it doesn't go. What is the technological glitch means? Why does it happen? And why is it that I have no information on exactly whether the money has been debited or not?
No, that I cannot say, sir, until I face it. That is the issue. But otherwise, I would say,
I'm saying, based on this experience, you start wondering what exactly is the process of providing you this particular service. In case the service is not happening as per your requirement, therefore, what is it that one can do to ensure that either you are reminded or the bank is reminded or the AMC does it mechanically because it's a automated, digital transaction.
Correct.
But how am I informed, the bank informed about some problem, etc.? It is still, So what I'm saying is, these kind of personal experiences also can be a good, way of trying to look at. For example, if I'm teaching banking and financial services and some processes that are involved, this could be a interesting experience of mine, which can be used to actually develop a case in itself.
Yes. Even a check related for that matter, which has happened off late because from this 1st October, all the amalgamated banks, for example, Corporation Bank, check leaves are not used. It is like Union Bank of India. So initially, that is for the time being. All the checks were returned as they. But luckily, banks did not deduct any money because normally when checks are sent back to the person giving the check, automatically they debit. And it is both the person who deposited the check as well.
Correct. Now, what I'm saying is these are all simple things which happen in our day-to-day, probably regular kind of banking transactions and all of that. But if one is deeply looking at what exactly are the issues and all of that and bring it to the class in terms of, let's say, in a commerce class or a management class, etc. It's a good...
Sir, I would rather, we are talking about a case. I wanted to ask something this. Can a situation be converted into case? Because I asked this question yesterday also. Can a situation be converted into a case, adding colors and characters, bringing that protagonist and
adding colors, characters, etc. Not imaginary, real ones. Now, in this case, actually, what I can do is I can go to the bank, I can go to an AMC, have a in-depth interview with the people who have knowledge about how this transaction works, etc. And then write the whole thing as a case and therefore say what are the options available for the bank as well as the AMC as well as for the consumer.
So you say it cannot be imaginary; it has to be real.
Yeah, most of the cases, both the journals as well as case clearing houses will not accept armchair, imaginary, fictitious case.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Your situation should trigger you to write a case, but in the real life context, actually taking a real, people, real companies, or real context. Yeah, somebody else has also raised the hands. Swati or Cheryl? No. Okay. The other material or case lead could be a colleague, under discussion with a colleague that can actually result in, a good case, because your colleague may be working on something else and you are talking to him or her about whatever is that PhD work or something that you are discussing, and then you may feel that there is an additional dimension that is available. So why can't we write a case together? That's also a possibility. And then the other very common way of trying to look at writing cases on something is on success or failure. Right? How come Tata Motors is successful with introducing several electric cars? Right? What is what is it that it is doing better? How it has got so much of money from other investors in order to develop this electric cars business, when electric cars as a percentage of the total cars that are being sold in the country are very minimal. So should they really expand electric cars in a big way? Should they have a mix? Should they have hybrid cars? What way would others compete with them, etc., etc. That's a good way of trying to look at also what's happening in the electric cars market, right? This could be a good starting point for writing a case on Tata Motors and their electric vehicles business, right? So which means my wife and daughters make fun of me that it's a matter of your getting into this case writing as a interest and involvement and enthusiasm. That the more you get involved in writing cases, the more you will see every other situation that has the potential to be converted into a case. And if it relates to your particular area, I think it becomes all the more impactful. That's exactly that I want to say when you are talking of case lead. Any questions on this case lead? Okay. Let me go to the next part now. The case organization or the case site, that is from where will you collect all this information or the source for the case. One is actually a local newspaper, like I said, that will have very interesting local innovations which may have the potential to actually develop big, and therefore don't neglect any of the local businesses that are thriving. Why are they thriving? How are they thriving? Like say for example, in the place I live in, there are a lot of these otherwise shops which sell all kinds of things. They have installed a small kind of a different wet grinder, not the bigger one, which is almost like the hand pump, okay, with a container on the top. Right, you have to put in the soaked rice and dal, and through the almost like the tap nozzle, you will get actually in a matter of minutes your ground, your ground batter for dosa and idli. And nowadays nobody buys all these wet grinders. They all go to this place, give this soaked dal and rice in one container and then get the batter done matter of minutes, either sitting there or later if they have identifiable containers, they can go and get it there later. So the question is, this kind of simple wet grinders, how are they replacing the traditional wet grinders, whether it is the bigger, larger one or ones on the tabletop, and how are they managing? Why consumers are preferring this over those, or why still tabletop wet grinders are selling versus this? So what are the options for either this marketer or the other marketer to sell one product compared to the other, etc. It's a good either your local observation or through local newspaper, you can get these kind of ideas, and also about new or interesting products that are out in the market. If you are constantly looking at them, that's also another way of trying to capture new ideas for case writing. For example, USB based reading lamps, right? You have table lamps which you connect to your laptop, and if you have all the lights off, if you want only to your the typing pad to be lit up, what kind of products are available which can work on a USB technology, and how is that probably changing the way in which one is buying these table lamps or reading lamps, etc. I think that's another interesting way of looking at new types of products that are available. So it could be even a pen stand come table lamp, and it is the power can be drawn from the laptop using USB, right? So interesting products, local newspaper and local businesses, internet or research publications, and more importantly, your students and alumni, right? Some of your students may actually be involved in businesses, right? They may come from a business family, or they are actually working in businesses. So they could be very interesting source of your case. But even more would be actually your alumni, right? So your alumni, those who have already graduated from your institution and who have gone and are working in some organizations, are set up their own business, they will be more than happy to share with you details about their company. Students and alumni are especially very important source, because in most cases they have some amount of respect for you, and therefore getting consent on writing cases on their companies or organizations becomes much more easier. Entry becomes easier because you know them clearly, and therefore this is a good source that you can think of when you are looking at writing cases. We are talking of students and alumni. Another source could be colleagues whose husbands or wives are running businesses, or who themselves are running other business or belong to a business family, etc. You can really tap them, or they are working for some organizations. Let's say, for example, one of your colleagues is a Rotarian, then the Rotary Club that he is heading or she is heading is involved in some project and there's an interesting situation which you can write a case on. All that is possible. And last but not the least, industry advisors. I think all your institutions will have advisory board where you have industry representation. One of the best ways of really looking for cases is to tap these organizations, because they are anyway attached to your institution, and they will be relatively speaking willing to provide you information and data for writing cases, right? So which means I have given you different avenues or different possibilities in terms of what sources you can knock into for writing cases, right? Any questions or any comments on this? Yes, any of you? Okay, let's go to the next part. That is, how do you write the case? So we are getting into actually more specifics of writing the case, and this is where I think the first paragraph, in terms of first 1 or 2 paragraphs, in terms of what you are writing as a case, becomes very important, right? Now I want to demonstrate it with a case that that's already published. Is that fine? I just want to hear from somebody on whether you are following.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
sir.
Okay. Just wait a minute. Just wait a minute, I'm opening that case. Okay. Are able to see one ACRJ case, Asian Case Research Journal case?
Yes,
are
sir.
able to see this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this
Yes,
is a
sir.
case that I wrote along with my colleague at that point of time, Kushankur De. He is with IIM Lucknow now. Right. This is on a company called National Collateral Management Services Limited. Okay. So you look at the first paragraph, it really gives you an idea of exactly what I talked of in terms of the the initial hook, that is what is required in the case opening, the first paragraph or first 1 or 2 paragraphs in the case. So you can read along with me. It was June 2012, which means I'm talking of the exact year in which this thing happened, this situation happened. Mr. Sanjay Kaul, that means I am identifying the protagonist in the case, the person who is to take the decision. MD, and what is his designation? MD and CEO of, and what is the organization? NCMSL, that is National Collateral Management Services Limited. And what is the decision to be taken? Was concerned about expansion of his organization. So NCMSL has to expand. This is what is the question, and there are different ways in which it can expand. Which is the kind of option that the company should take? That is what is the problem that the company is facing. Okay. So, what is this NCMSL? In one word, one sentence, I am saying NCDEX promoted Mumbai-based NCMSL in 2004, which means NCDEX is the promoter of NCMSL, and it was started in 2004. Right now, it is 2012 when this decision has to be taken. So, it has been 8 years since the company started off. Second, it is also mentioned that NCMSL was initially only a warehousing service provider. It was not into collateral management. Okay, right? But now it has become basically a collateral. I think most of you must be aware of the difference between warehousing services and collateral management. Any doubts about that?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, the next aspect is that you need to know about this decision maker, Sanjay Kaul. Who is he? So he took charge in 2008, which is 4 years after NCMSL was set up. Okay, and what is his background? IAS officer, 28 years in the government, and then in NCDEX, he was as an expert, and then he is the second person, after Mr. Hari Prasad, who was the first MD and CEO of NCMSL. So that also is given. So what is the background of the decision maker here in this case? The MD and CEO who is thinking about what should be done, in terms of expansion of NCMSL's services. That's mentioned. And then what exactly is the issue? Procurement was central to NCMSL's warehousing operations during Prasad's tenure. So, you know that initially it was only a warehousing service provider. So, if for a warehouse to be successful, good procurement is important, because only then the warehouse's capacity will be used effectively, right? Therefore, the first MD and CEO, he was concentrating only on looking at the procurement part. Okay, whereas when Kaul came in, he was keen on concentrating on collateral management. That is, it is not just filling up the space in the warehouse, it's also about how do you manage the collateral. That means, let's say a tomato is kept in the warehouse. What is the temperature, humidity it has to be kept, how to avoid wastage, how do you value the total tomatoes that are kept in the the warehouse. How do you provide access to warehouse receipt financing? Okay, and how do you really value the collateral using a third party, and then assess or certify the collateral to be of good quality, because it's on the basis of this tomato that one is kept in the warehouse that one would get some funding before the tomatoes are actually sold. I'm just giving you an example, right? So Kaul is thinking about expanding into the warehousing, I mean the collateral management services, business, right? So if you look at here, these are all part of the first, paragraph. NCMSL had started constructing its own warehouse for expanding the business. Mr. Kaul was wondering whether this would be a better way out for its CM services business, because if you want to concentrate on the collateral management services business, would you want to expand building your own warehouses, which means a lot of cost will go up in building your warehouse versus really leasing out warehouses and concentrating more on the just expanding your services as collateral for collateral management, which means providing the services of certification of the quality of the collateral and providing warehouse receipt for finances, etc. What should be done? So the whole case revolves around this. So the hook, which means what should be mentioned right in the beginning, is very clear. So let me take one more example to mention this. So here is a case that I use in marketing. Look at the beginning of the case. It says June 30th, 2018. Specific date is given. Azhar Ali was sitting in his office and waiting for execution of sales order to ensure smooth closing of the fiscal year. Ali was working as a, so who is Azhar Ali? The regional distribution manager of which company? Yakub Biscuit Manufacturers. And from which year? 2013. So he's got 5 years of work experience. What is his job? Complete logistics and warehousing operations of the region. Right now, what is the situation that he is facing? Since his joining, Ali had been achieving all of the assigned targets. They would always go an extra mile in supporting overall regional as well as organizational goals. Since he is the regional distribution manager, whether the region targets are achieved, whether the organizational goals are achieved, he will be very particular about that. It was the last working day of the fiscal year, and Ali was very much excited because he was supposed to be promoted as national distribution manager. So this is where the climax comes in, right? And transferred to the head office after a successful annual closing as promised by the director supply chain. So his boss is director supply chain, and what he has promised is that once this annual closing is done, he will be promoted as national distribution manager. Now, however, he had just received a hefty sales order from out of his region. This sales order needed to be served from Ali's region because of stock availability. So he has got a region, but from outside his region, one sales order has come. Now he has to supply from his region. So it was important for achieving overall organizational targets. Otherwise, the company could miss the annual sales target. So for the organization, this order becomes important. But for Ali, he has already achieved his target for the fiscal year for his region. Now, what is his problem? Ali was not sure whether he would be able to serve this sales order, as all his fleet was already busy in service his own region's orders. Right? He has got a fleet of vehicles. He has to serve his own region with whatever are the sales orders that have come in. But this new order has come from another region. Order. Organization will benefit, but it will not benefit him because his targets are already achieved, and he will have a problem because his fleet is already busy with serving his own region's order. Now he has a dilemma. If he has to be promoted as a national distribution manager in the future, he has to look at all regions. So his thoughts of promotion. And this out of region sales order, if he agrees, then he will have a problem with his own region in terms of further supplies. Right? What should he do? Should he go and really do both? How is that possible? Will he have to hire the additional fleet, etc.? All these details will come in the case later. But what should Azhar Ali do in this kind of a situation? So these are two examples of what I can think of as what you can look at as the hook. So let me come back here, right? So the hook represents actually an interesting situation. So in the NCMSL case, you're talking of how to expand. Should it expand warehouses? Should it expand only collateral management services, or should it expand both? Will it actually help the company if, rather than putting a lot of investment in expanding warehouses, you lease warehouses, or you just forget about warehousing as a concept? You are only providing collateral management services, right? That's an interesting situation, right? Because that's what the MD or CEO feels at that point of time when the situation is happening in the company. Similarly, if you take the Yaqub case, Azhar Ali is regional distribution manager. It's a biscuit company. He has to regularly kind of source biscuits and then spread it across, distribute it across the entire region. He's going to be promoted. There is a order from another region. Should he go for satisfying that? Should he stick to only his region? Will his prospects of promotion get affected if he forgets about that order in the other region, etc.? That's the interesting situation that the regional distribution manager is facing. So when you have these interesting situations, it actually creates some kind of attachment of the reader or the students or the participants to the case, and you start reading through the case in great detail because now you like the situation. And in that case opening, as you have seen, there is a mention about the protagonist. There is a clear mention about which is the organization, what is the industry or sector, date, time, dilemma, options, and everything is given in the form of a very brief description. So, any questions here on this part? Any questions? Hello. Any questions on this part, that what should be the case opening?
Sir, I don't see any questions, so you can continue.
Okay. Okay. Now, so let's get to the next part. Sorry. So I think we stopping at this because I think the next part goes into details. So can we, take because we have about another 45 minutes more.
Yes, I think around 1 hour we have till 1:45.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is, taking up a few case leads and converting them into the initial case opening as an exercise, because that is something that will be helpful in terms of each one of them trying to develop cases. We already got 2 of them sharing their ideas, right? Can we have others also sharing their ideas? So essentially what we are going to do is to try attempting the case opening, and I will help you with this process. Okay.
Sir, may I?
Yeah, please.
Sir, I have tried for a case which is presented into infographic way. I don't know how successful I was.
Can you do, are you on a laptop, and can you actually show me what is it that you have tried?
Yeah, sir, I can share the screen with you if the organizers permit me.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Jatina, can you allow Dr.
Yes, sir. We are just making her a present. Ma'am, could you just share your name again?
Chavi. Dr. Chavi.
It's Dr. Chavi.
Ma'am, could you raise your digital hand for us, please?
Please raise your hands. Yeah, it's easy because your name will come on the top.
Yes, ma'am, you can share your screen now.
Is the screen visible now?
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, I'm trying. Just a minute. Is it now?
No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Sir, so I tried to prepare a case which was related to packaging, and it was based on the Chic shampoo sachet power.
Okay.
So I just wrote the quote over here from the Chinni Krishnan: "What the rich man can enjoy, the common man should be able to afford." Then I wrote a short, what you told us about opening hook sort of thing over here. Late Chinni Krishnan used to sell talcum powder and all those things. Then how the Velvet Shampoo Company started by C.K. Ranganathan and the price. Then I quoted the company history over here, how the names had been changed and what all had been done. And in the last part, I have tried to incorporate what has been done by Kevin Care was followed by HUL and Godrej in the sachet segment.
Yeah, now I think Dr. Chavi,
yes,
what is the area that you belong to? I mean, discipline.
So marketing, retail, and
marketing. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Now, when you are trying to write a case on Chic shampoo.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What are you trying to kind of convey through this case? So, in which kind of course will you be able to use this?
So, I used in this for UG students that how an innovative move in packaging by Chic shampoo was followed by multinational companies.
See, Dr. Chavi, I think that's what we were discussing right in the first session.
Yes, sir.
A case is not an elaborate example. Okay. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? A case is not an elaborate example.
Okay.
If you are using a case, I mean, this is what is called as a case study, which means you are giving a description of a company, what it did. That's all.
Yeah, practical example, basically, I can say.
Yeah, whatever, practical example, whatever name you give it, it is an elaborate example with all the details possible, right? Now, we already talked about exactly this question, that what is actually a decision-making teaching case? a decision making teaching case is one which actually helps through the decision making process the students to understand a particular theory or a concept. Now here what happens is there is no decision making involved. Okay, number one. Number two, there is only description. This is what the company Kevin Care did, and this is what happened to Chick Shampoo, or this is what they did. That's all. So if you are teaching using, let's say, for example, the regular lecture method, you can give this example in the class, and then that will be the end of it, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, you are teaching something on, I don't know, let's say product, and then innovative packaging within that, and here is an example, and then you can show this and then talk about exactly how Chick Shampoo did it, right? So it will stop at that, right?
Yes, sir.
For example,
Yes,
if you ask a question on what are the 4 P's in marketing and in product, what is meant by innovative packaging, and give an example, students will immediately write in their exam. They will always remember this example that you give. They will write example Chick Shampoo. This is the person who developed it, etc., etc. Maybe some details and all of that. My question is, what is the learning? Students don't learn anything if you are just giving an example. So that's why we make a distinction between what is called as inductive learning and deductive learning. So anybody has an idea of what is the distinction between induction and deduction?
what all can be included in the learning and what all can be removed to?
No. Inductive and deductive logic, learning. Yes, I think Dr. Cheryl. Can you allow Dr. Cheryl to speak?
Yes, sir, we've given the access.
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Cheryl. Hello? I don't think there's a problem with her.
Dr. Cheryl, you have been given the option to speak.
But I think she is on, her microphone is on, that's what it shows, but we're not able to hear.
Mrs. Harita Sri?
Yeah, please go ahead. Harita Sri, can you please go ahead? Not audible. Harita Sri? Harita Sri? I think Dr. Srishti, I think I'm able to hear. Can you
Yes,
go ahead?
sir. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I think induction more related to the reasoning, like towards the theoretical approach, we need to give the reason. Okay, why we are selecting, what is the beginning of the theory and how we can inculcate in this particular case, and reducing in the sense how means addition to the theory, how we can support and construct a series of words which can support the theories of that particular case.
Sirsha?
Yes, sir. Sir, if I explain it in a very layman's term, what I've understood is deductive is when from generalization you move towards exemplifying it with examples.
Absolutely,
and inductive
right.
is when you concentrate on specific example and then elaborate it further and go to the generalization.
So, lecture as a pedagogical tool follows which logic, and case as a pedagogical tool follows which logic?
So lecture is more of deductive in the nature, because first we generalize, first we give the theory and then we provide it, or we explain it through examples.
Correct.
Whereas case study is more of inductive, because we start with a specific case and move towards generalization.
Absolutely wonderful. I think you have made my job simpler. This is exactly something that everybody who is trying to understand case writing should really relate to. See, the point is deductive logic is general to particular. Okay, that means this is how we have learned in school and college in general, right? That is what somebody will say. What are the 4 P's of marketing? The 4 P's of marketing are product, place, price, and promotion. Let's take product. Product means this. Let's take an example of this, etc. This is how we are taught, right? And similarly it goes on. So let's take services marketing. It has got 8 P's instead of 4 P's, etc., etc. This is how we are taught. So we are given the concept or theory or the broad aspect first, and then we are given examples left and right for each one of them, and then it stops there. The problem with that kind of teaching is that for each of the examples that are given, we don't get to know the entire context in which that example is relevant, right? Unfortunately, therefore, our learning is very limited. For each one, just for the sake of variety, one example is given, and we don't know in depth what exactly is the situation for each aspect. Right. For pricing, this is the company that follows, different kind of pricing, example, etc. It goes on. Whereas when you are looking at case-based learning, what happens is you take one company which is in the fast-moving consumer goods industry, and what it does with regard to pricing, what are the options available to it, and therefore what is the right kind of pricing option given its situation, which means from the particular company or organization in terms of its pricing, right? If I am to take again contemporary example, Tatas have got these airlines. They already have the presence across 2 other airlines, Air Asia and one more. Okay.
Vistara.
Vistara, Air Asia, and this new Air India is now bought by them. Now, if you take, this is what is the speculation, that one of the options available to them is merge all of them, use all the airlines under one brand umbrella, just forget about Vistara and Air Asia, and then have only one Air India. That's one possibility, merge everything. Otherwise, have 3 different brands with 3 different pricing strategies, right? But in what kind of context you would have, a premium strategy, which will be a low-cost carrier, which will be a high, full-cost carrier, which will be ultra low cost, and in what way these decisions will be taken, what aspects will affect, pricing across these 3 different kinds of airlines owned by the same company, 3 different brands. I think if we discuss that, and then at the end of it actually talk about what are the different kinds of pricing strategy and which pricing strategy is applicable in the context of which kind of situation, etc., the learning becomes better, and then one is able to understand, okay, these are all some of the factors that we have to look at consumer segments, look at the number of slots, look at the earlier history of each one of these airlines. Look at the nature of demand across in different, if you talk of all of this, then you are trying to now conceptualize it and say that whenever you are looking at pricing, you have to look at all these aspects. So it's not only applicable in the context of airlines, it will be applicable also in the context of other products and services. So pricing strategy depends on all of this. How do we arrive at this? On the basis of this case, where we have used what is going to happen to Tata's when they are going to manage 3 brands of airlines. Right? So it is exactly the ulta of what we have learned or what we have been teaching in terms of classes, because we don't start with theory and then give examples. We take an example in great detail and then we abstract or get into generalization based on that particular case, and therefore we understand the theory of the concept. And that's where I think the question initially, I think Mr. Lewis was asking whether this is better or that is better, etc. It is not a question of this or that is better. It's a totally new way of looking at teaching. It is not saying first teach a concept, then use a case. It is teaching the concept using a case. Right? It is not case and concept later or concept and case later. It is teaching the concept through the case. There are no separate sessions on concept or theory before or after. Is that clear? So now I'm coming back to, I think, the question that I think Dr. Chavi was asking. Right? What are you trying to do with this case on chick shampoo? That's the question.
Yes, the pricing, affordability, and the packaging. 3 issues were targeted through this case or this example.
But before that, we are trying to understand whenever you write a case, there should be a dialogue. Right?
Now we understand that what should be the right way to framing a case.
Correct. Correct. So even if you take the case that you are thinking about, chick shampoo in the form of sachet, what will be your what will be the dilemma that you think you can incorporate in this case, even when you're wanting to talk about it from a point of view of packaging or anything else? Anybody else can also react.
It would be a decision that how to make this product available in a convenient way at a suitable price to the people who are not able to afford product at a high priced.
I was about to think what you would say. See, then the question is, you are saying this shampoo sachets are targeted at bottom of the pyramid, that is very low income kind of consumers who would only require this product at times when they require and in its small quantities that they can afford, right?
Yes,
but that's the target segment, right? But do you mean to say that that's the only target segment that sachets actually cater to?
No, sir. Now the scenario has changed due to mobility of people everywhere in the world. Now people are utilizing these packagings as a convenience for them to carry from one place to another.
Absolutely. So for travelers, this is a convenient packaging, and therefore you can take whatever the numbers instead of big bottles, bulky ones, or or a problem with some bottle opening up, etc. This is something that is a secure packaging, and therefore that is something that you can use.
Sir, I would like to place a dilemma.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Cheryl Wienendice from Goa.
Finally, your
yes.
voice is heard.
Okay, sir. So the thing is about the chick shampoo. The dilemma is the smaller packets are creating a lot of garbage and a menace to the environment. So is there any other way of presenting this to the consumers?
Wonderful. So what do you teach Shelley?
I, in fact, teach tourism. HRM is my specialization.
Okay.
And sustainability in tourism and ethics.
Very good. So look at how the same case can be totally turned around into a sustainability problem, right? Like, for example, you can ask a question, can there be sustainable packaging, even though it's a sachet, can there be sustainable packaging? Or what is a way to actually, try and reduce packaging? For example, since you are teaching tourism, if you go to some, most of the hotels now, shampoo is not kept in sachet or in bottles. I don't know whether you have observed. Any idea how it is kept as?
Dispensers?
Yes. So they use dispensers, right? Isn't it a sustainable way of managing, packaging of shampoos?
Yes, sir. And I have one more solution. This is, I think, shown by Better India. What they said is, get back your bottles and we refill and give it to you. So it solves
but
the
how
problem
many consumers are even willing to get a bottle for simple things like milk or oil, etc. That used to be the case earlier, but not many are willing to do that. And in fact, since you mentioned about the bottle, the other way to look at this particular case is about a concept in marketing called quantity surcharge. Any of you in marketing who have heard of this term? Quantity surcharge. Right. Normally, what is your expectation about buying anything in greater quantity or greater volume?
Yes, sir. They have that option. If you buy in bulk, then the cost reduces.
Reduces, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if I am to buy a bottle of shampoo, the cost per ml of shampoo must be less, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. But did you actually check, or any of you have actually checked, whatever you get is in a sachet is like 6 ml, right? Roughly. And 6 ml is around, 1 rupee or 2 rupees. Okay. So if you are to buy a 100 ml bottle, how much should be the cost? So if it is 6 ml, 1 rupee, 16 into 6 is 96, right? Even if you say 17, it should cost 17 rupees, 100 ml, right? Do you get any shampoo at 17 rupees in a bottle for 100 ml?
No, sir, we don't.
So what's happening with this packaging? There is also a quantity surcharge, right? What it means is that as the packaging becomes a bottle, the per unit quantity price per unit actually increases, right? Instead of paying 1 rupee for 6 ml or 2 rupee for 6 ml, you are paying much more, right? So there is a concept of pricing called quantity surcharge, where you go against this basic consumer perception that if you buy greater quantity or greater volume, you actually your price per unit actually comes down. That is not true, right? So then the question is, do you go in for pricing, with this perception that there will be lower, price per unit? That's what is the general consumer perception, or whether you will go against the perception. That's the dilemma that you have. Our more important issue is, will a consumer actually, while buying a shampoo, compare per unit volume? Let's say there are 3 packages available. There is a sachet available, there is a small bottle available, there is a bigger bottle that is available, right? So even mentally, or even with let's say using the mobile phone or this calculator, does somebody make a calculation of if 100 ml is so much, then per ml is so much, and if I actually calculate it for the shampoo, it should be priced lesser. Why is it being priced high? Therefore, I will buy 10 shampoo sachets and then I will fill it up on my own in the existing bottles that I have. Right? So the question for the marketer is, if this is what is the consumer behavior, do you see many consumers actually buying sachets compared to buying bottles? So what is the role of product form in terms of impacting price perception? If you have to look at, I think it will be an interesting case that how should such a decision be taken. This is something that you can generalize on the basis of the case that you can write using this kind of a approach.
Thank you, sir. Lots of avenues are now open for searching out and framing this case again in a better way.
Correct. So I'm just giving you an idea of how, if you just get a trigger of what to write the case on, you can think based on the area that you belong to very differently in creating a case. But your first paragraph, so we are coming back to again the same thing, the hook. What exactly are you trying to present as a dilemma, for whom? That becomes important, and that is something that you have to write down clearly when you are beginning to write a case. Anybody else who has other ideas on writing a case?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So mine is again about sustainability. So I will
Yeah,
just
please.
read out
Yeah.
what I have.
Have you
Opening
written
of
it
the,
down? Can you share it so that all of us can read?
I can share. Just
Yeah.
a minute.
Dr. Jetina?
Yes, sir.
Can you please allow for some sharing by Dr. Cheryl so that she can show?
Yes. Ma'am, could you please raise your hand?
Okay, 1 second. Yes.
Yes, Dr.
Okay,
Cheryl, you should be able
yes.
to share your screen
I'll
now.
share it. Yes. Just a second. So are you able to see my screen? Not.
Yeah, we are able to see your screen. Okay.
Okay. So this is about climate change. So climate change is a harsh reality. The
Now, can you
increasing
make it?
levels of PM.
Can you make it full screen? Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm able to see it.
It is.
Yeah.
Climate change is it went off. Just a minute. I think it went to the next screen. Just a second. Yes. So climate change is a harsh reality. The increasing levels of PM 2.5 in the air due to wood, garbage, plastic burning, which is done at the domestic level as well as through industry. Vehicle pollution has contributed to the rising temperatures of the globe and resulting in increasing global temperatures by 2 degrees. Human carbon footprint is ever increasing. A lot of promises are made at the government level, but are these policies enough to initiate the change towards sustainable living? So what is happening at the grassroots levels to curb this ever-growing menace? How can the theory of sustainability help in relieving this problem to a large extent? There is more, but this is just a start of the case. So just wanted to know whether this
yeah,
help.
Dr. Cheryl, number one, you are listening through the discussion on deductive versus inductive logic, right?
Correct.
So what is deductive? It is from general to particular, which is like lecturing. Okay,
Yes.
giving a theory or a concept and then giving examples based on that. Whereas case is exactly the reverse. We start with a particular and then we try and generalize or make it abstract. Okay. Now, what do you think? Where do you think whatever you have written falls into?
So I'm trying to focus more on the theory in this case.
Correct.
But then there is the case has not yet started. In fact, I wanted to speak more about bamboo and the options.
Where is that? Is there in the next slide?
No. This is the starting that I have done.
Okay. So the
if I
first
need
thing.
Reverse and yes.
First thing is, yeah, you know it. So if you're talking about bamboo, right? You're interested in bamboo.
Yes.
Okay. Bamboo in what context?
Bamboo sequesters carbon. So
Okay.
planting bamboo is one of the solutions. And apart from that, using them even for housing, even to reduce carbon footprint to a large extent works very well. So
Okay.
actually, I
So
wanted to go into sustainability.
so you have to start with bamboo. Okay. Because bamboo is something that is very particular, and from the bamboo part, you are wanting to bring in the sustainability issue, climate change issue, etc. Right? That's the thing. Second observation of mine regarding whatever you have written, whatever idea that you have displayed here, is that there is a distinction between case research and teaching or decision making case that we are discussing now, right? That you are aware. Okay. Yes. Now, what you have started off here looks like writing doing something like a case research.
Okay.
Right, and now you're going to take the example of bamboo and then trying to explain all these questions that you have raised here. The policy is enough to initiate change towards sustainable living. How can theory of sustainability help in relieving this problem to a great extent, etc., through this case study of the bamboo sector or bamboo as a product.
Right.
Then it becomes case research.
Okay, sir. Okay.
You have to also look at what kind of research has been done on this across in other products. Why do you think bamboo is something different that you want to study? You have to give a justification of why you are taking bamboo as the case for study here.
Right.
Right, that's true. So you have to be careful about exactly what is the what is it that you are wanting to do. Is it theory with examples in terms of the context? Then it becomes a regular lecture class.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If it is theory where you are taking a specific phenomenon and we are trying to explain it as how it is adding to or bringing some change to theory, etc., then it becomes case research.
Right.
If it is taking a particular phenomenon or situation and then trying to, through that, generalize it to a broad concept, etc., then it becomes teaching a decision making case where there is a decision making involved and there is a concept that you are trying to drive through the decision that is involved in the case.
Right.
So these three are different. As long as you are aware that these three approaches are totally different, I think there will be greater clarity in terms of what you want to do when we talk of writing a teaching case or a research case or giving examples as part of a lecture.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can start with the organization which has actually revived an entire village on bamboo products. And
where are you from,
I'm residing in Goa, sir. And
Goa,
the case that I'm speaking about, the origin of this case was through Mela that I attended, which was in Goa. And it is called as the Lok Utsav. So here there were people who were marketing the bamboo products, and then they had a literature with them, and they said how they have revived the entire village by making them self-sustainable, teaching them how to use bamboo and make these products, and then sell it to these.
But then where is the climate change part coming in?
This particular thing, the thing is about the uses of bamboo. They themselves actually told that bamboo is able to control pollution to a large extent. That was also given in their literature. So that was something that attracted me, and I felt that my students need to know about this.
That's so you have to start with that organization.
Okay.
You have to start with that organization and the specific product called bamboo, and then work on the basis of that.
Okay.
That if you are writing a teaching decision making case.
Right.
For example, why not anything other than bamboo? That's also a
there
question.
are many other, but this was an entire village which will help me to also teach sustainability, the triple bottom line.
Correct.
People, profit, and planet. So how the people benefited, how they
very good. So you have a broad idea. So I think but the only thing is the approach. So you start with the organization.
Okay, will do. I'll do the changes.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So anybody else who want to share their ideas, because the purpose is in terms of trying to also develop as many cases as possible, probably at the end of the this program, because that also is a mark of the success of learning as part of the program. Anybody who want to share your ideas on the case that you want to write? Yes, Harita Shri, yes. We are not able to hear you. Harita Shri, are you speaking? Hello? Hello?
Sir, I think you can continue. I think Mrs. Harita Shri is having technical issues. Ma'am, can you hear us?
I think there is a problem. What about others? Because I am now looking at basically this case opening, because the next session we are going to discuss about case outline and teaching outline, etc. Would you want me to start off with that right now? I have no problem.
Sir, if you're done with the session, then it's okay. We can actually break for lunch and we can join back by 2:30. 2:30 is the next session.
Okay, fine. So should we stop here? And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can meet at 2:30 again.
Sir, in case like we can advance the session, like would you want to hold it earlier? Is it?
No. But I think
because we have time till 1:45 now.
Correct.
And next session is only at 2:30. So would you like to continue with your session till 1:45 and then just continue from where you left off at 2:30 so we can wind up early for the third session?
No, I think we'll stop here, and we will, because I have to go home and then have my
just a moment, sir. Sir, so third session 2:30 is more convenient. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Then we can wind up, sir. No problem.
Yeah. And we can extend beyond 4:30. It's not an issue.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We'll see you for the third session then. Participants, kindly note, please be back by 2:25. Thank you.